Hello, and welcome to the Accountability Coach podcast, where we discuss proven business success principles related to helping you make more money and work less so you can enjoy having your ideal business and your ideal life. This is Bachrach. Today we have a very special guest with us who I know you will find to be a wealth of information related to helping people over 40 improve their health by losing weight and getting fitter. Now, if you're under 40, you will still want to listen, learn, and implement these ideas. Allan Misner is a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer, a Precision Nutrition Level 2 Master Health Coach, and a Functional Aging Institute certified functional aging specialist. He's earned specialties in behavior change, corrective exercise, and performance enhancement, as well as fitness nutrition and online personal training. He's the author of the award-winning book, The Wellness Roadmap, a straightforward guide to health and fitness after 40. And he is the host of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, which is a health and fitness podcast for people over 40. Well, welcome, Allan. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Ann. I'm really happy to be here.
So let's be upfront here, Allan. What you're sharing with us today is not just for people who are 40 years and older. They're really ideas that anyone can use, right?
They are. The only reason I spoke specifically to 40 plus was when I first started and I was trying to fix myself. What I realized was nobody was doing this. Nobody was talking about how it can be different as you get older to lose weight, get stronger, do these things. And every time I tried to do something that had worked very well for me in my 20s, I broke myself. And so I was looking for resources, podcasts, books. The only books that were out there were really about stretching and chair yoga. So, I guess that's where they expected us to go after 30. So I was like, it's still after months and months of working on myself, nobody was doing this. So I decided that I needed to step out into this market. But yes, most of everything we talk about today is applicable no matter how old you are.
Love it. That's perfect. Perfectly what I was hoping you would say.
Yes.
So, and let's just kind of start with a little level setting here. So how can improving our fitness in general lead us to be even better entrepreneurs, help us get even better results because our fitness is better?
Well, having more fitness makes you more resilient. You're more resilient to stress. You're more resilient to the world. So you're not as sick. You have more energy. And most people find once they get themselves into a certain level of fitness, that fitness actually makes them better at their job. So taking time out just to go for even a 10-minute walk is going to make you more productive overall. So, for me, a big part of it, I was, corporate executive doing my thing. It was very stressful. I found that if I could go in the gym and start throwing around heavy weights, that was better than throwing around employees or managers. and so, for me, fitness became a release that I really, really needed, particularly need when I get super stressed. So it has a lot of benefits to just taking care of yourself. And when you do that, everything else is easier.
Yeah, our health really is number one, because without our health, we really can't be a lot, do a lot, or not a lot. And you hear a lot of times about the super wealthy people who are sick, and they said, hey, I'd give up all my money just to have my health back, right?
Well, yeah, I'm listening to the biography of Elon Musk, and it's like he was in such physical distress during the most stressful periods of time in his career. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that they're not talking about his fitness regime. They're just basically saying he's living and breathing and sleeping right there, in the factory. And I'm like, well, yeah, that obviously your body it's got physical limits. So taking moments and doing things to refresh yourself, and that includes fitness activities, is really the best way to make sure you're there for the long haul.
Give us some perspective. What are the 5 mindset types that once you're aware of your primary type, you can actually flip it from being a blockage to really being, I think you call it a superpower?
Yes. When I was going through my journey, because I tried this. It was 8 years, 8 years of trying and failing. And I was like, what is broken here? What is wrong? And I couldn't figure it out for almost 9 years. And then I started figuring a few things out, and I committed to this, and I started doing things. And unbeknownst to me at the time, I was working my way through some of these mindsets, and I can talk about that in a minute. But what happens is we have these mindsets, these things in our head that will basically, if we don't deal with them, that will stop us. And so what the mindsets are is, now I've been working with thousands of clients, so I've cataloged them. There's about 5 of them. And as I go through them and I describe them, just pay attention to yourself, the thoughts that are in your head. And I think you're going to nod, yes, I am that, or a little bit of this and some of that, because most of us do have more than one. But you've got to take them in order. It's like dominoes. It doesn't do any good if you hit the second one. It's not going to work. You got to find that first one and get it out of your way, and then you can start progressing. So there are 5 of them. The first one I'll talk about is the co-pilot. And this is very common with women. It's very common with entrepreneurs and successful business people, is that every other priority is much more important than we are. So you've got to get this done, got to get that done. We've got this deadline, we've got that. And so we're go, go, go all the time. And we just can't find the time and extra energy necessary to get things done. We don't have time to batch cook, so we eat out all the time. We don't have time to go to the gym, so we don't. Other things are more important to us. And so the thing about a co-pilot is that oftentimes they're doing this for other people. I've got this deadline. I need to get this done for that person. I'm doing this project and I got to get this done for that. I've got to take the kids here. I've got to take, I'll go do this for my spouse. But a lot of times for the co-pilot, what they don't recognize is that they have a team of people already around them. And if all they can do, if they can just ask, many of these people will allow you to delegate things. They will make time. They will figure it out, without you sometimes. And so for the co-pilot to turn this mindset into a superpower, it's about switching it around and asking for help, which is very hard. But once you start asking for help, it gets easier and easier. So with someone struggling with co-pilot, which was one of the first things I was dealing with, it was a problem. So what I did, I told my boss, I'm like, look, I want to work out from 2 to 3. It's when no one else is in the gym except really old people and college kids. And I said, so I want to go to the gym from 2 to 3. That's my lunch hour. And for the most part, they let me block out my lunch hour every day. But that was my lunch hour. And my boss knew it was my lunch hour. And so he didn't bother me as often. And I still got my job done. And I felt a lot better when I came back from the gym. So that's a co-pilot. The next one I want to talk about is the pedals person. And a pedals person, it's the pedals in the car. And the pedals in the car, we got a gas pedal and we got a brake pedal. So someone will find something that's interesting, like here's a new workout thing. And they'll go to start doing that new workout thing, and it's hard. They're sore, or they go a couple weeks and they're not really seeing anything. So they stop. They hit the brake, and then they're going to try something else. Or they try the new way of eating or a new diet, and they start the diet, and the weight loss is not as quick as they wanted it, so they hit the brake. And so for someone who's a pedals person, they have to recognize that tendency to hit the brake. And the instant that they stop hitting the brake and they stick to something that's a decent thing, so it's not one of these crazy, cabbage soup diet things, but just really something that's legit, if they can just keep from hitting that brake just a little bit longer, they usually get over that gap and they start seeing results. But they've got to talk themselves out of hitting the brake. Give it some time. The next one I'd like to talk about is the one that I call the windshield person. And this was very much this, because a windshield person will be looking in the rearview mirror at who they were. Now, for some of us, we were athletes in high school, and so we were looking back and we're thinking, I want to be like that. I want to be back like I was in my 20s, super fit, super this. And when we try to do stuff, we break ourselves. We're not getting anything done. We don't understand why it's not like what it was. So as a windshield person, what you've got to do is realize the seat that you're sitting in is where you are right now. And the only way to go forward is to turn your head and look out the windshield and just start moving from where you are. If you keep looking in the rearview mirror, you're not going the direction you want to go. So For that individual, it's about turning your head. And that's one of the key things I did. I didn't know how to train a 40-something-year-old guy, and I couldn't hire a trainer. So I had to realize this is where you are, and this is how you solve this problem. Put your head looking out the windshield and just keep moving forward. The next one is, okay, so we've talked about co-pilot, we've talked about pedals, we've talked about tires. I was also at one point in time a tires. And what a tires is the individual that needs traction. So if you've ever driven on an icy road and you're on a hill and it's a little icy, you know if you have traction, you don't slow down, you don't speed up, you just keep going. And so a tires person needs traction. They feed on traction. So this is an individual that is actually really, really good if you can implement gamification. So the rings on your iPhone, or having something where you're marking on a calendar, marking where you can see that you're doing a streak. Like my goal is I want to be able to do this every day. Then I want to be able to on the calendar mark those days. And once I start seeing that I'm building a streak, I have this internal desire to want to continue that streak. When I see that there are a lot of marks on my calendar, I want to have more marks on my calendar. So I may miss a day, but I know I immediately need to start back so I'm not losing that traction. And so that's a tires individual. And the final one, and this is where most people in this discussion here are going to be, is called an atlas. Now, this is not the God that's carrying the earth, holding the earth up. This atlas is the paper atlas we used to have when I was a kid and into adulthood. But what we would do is on a family trip, you'd pull out this paper atlas as a map, and you'd take a red felt pen and you draw the course. You draw what you're going to drive. And so this person, we had a start and we have a destination, and we can clearly see it if it was on an atlas, we'd see it physically, but in our mind, we have to have something in front of us. So an atlas is really super and really, really strong when they have something in front of them. They're high challenge people, type A people, entrepreneurs. And so from that perspective, we just want to know where we're going. And then it's easy enough for us to see that we're successfully moving in that direction. And so that's an atlas individual. And that's kind of where I ended up. I went through most of these. I didn't go through the pedals one so much, but I had to work through each one because I couldn't just set a big audacious goal in front of me without dealing with these other things first. So you may have nodded a little bit and said, well, I'm that and I'm that and that. I actually have a quiz. If you go to 40plusfitness.com/quiz, that's 40plusfitness.com/quiz. That's going to take you to a quiz. It's free. It takes about 60 seconds, and that will give you an idea of what your primary mindset is right now, and then you can start working on that. Once you get that one fixed, you might start feeling some of the other tendencies. You can take the quiz again and keep moving forward.
I definitely have a friend that's a pedals person. If something doesn't work, like right away, even though they say you have to do this for 30 days or 60 days, the tires person would want to check it off. You know, hey, I got this in one day, day 3. They would love this. And she says, it doesn't work in 2 days. I said, well, it says you're supposed to do it for 60 days. That's why you have a checkoff list. She said, that just takes too long. I can't do it for 60 days to get a result.
And so what I would tell someone who's in that kind of picture, of the pedals person or tires person, I'd say, okay, look, you do have to stick with something for a period of time. But it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% of that. And so if the thing was, okay, I want to cut, someone says, well, I need to cut carbs, and they're like, I'm going to cut down to no added sugar and no carbs. That's hard. So maybe just saying, okay, what's my current status, carb count? Okay, I'm eating 200 grams of carbs a day. Maybe I just try to cut that in half and go with 100 grams. And then when you feel that's doable, you just keep doing that. And you'll see results. You just have to stick with it. So I think a lot of times we bite off more than we can chew, and that's where part of the problem is. See, I was very much that. Again, that's part of that whole thing is the windshield. I went out, and so here was the plan. I was traveling all the time. Like I traveled about 90%. That's why I couldn't just hire a coach to fix me. I knew I had to do something different. But I was sitting there one Sunday. I was home, and I saw this infomercial for Insanity Workout. Okay, so this is Shaun T. It's part of Beachbody, and I loved it because they all looked fit, they all looked happy, and there was no equipment involved. I'm like, this works perfect because when I'm traveling, I don't have to carry anything with me. I don't have to have a gym membership. I can do this in my room. I can do this wherever. So I went through and I ripped off all those videos, put them on my iPad. And so this is before streaming and all that, but put all these CDs on my iPad. And then I said, okay, well, now I've got that. I'm ready. I'm going to do the benchmark workout. So this wasn't even a workout. This was just a test, do a little fitness test. And so I do the test. He's saying, push yourself hard, and I was. The next morning when I woke up, I couldn't get out of bed. I literally could not get out of bed, and it hurt just even to reach over to get my phone because I had to call out of work. I couldn't go to work. I wasn't an entrepreneur at that point. I had a boss, so I had to go to work, and I just couldn't. So I called off, and it was that whole thing. I was seeing my 29-year-old self that would have waxed that workout. And so when I pushed myself, I just pushed myself too hard. And you know what I did next? I didn't do a single one of those workouts. So that's a little bit of a pedals person and obviously a tires person because I didn't get any traction. I didn't do anything. I hit the brake immediately after that. I said, nope, can't do that. That was a mistake. Whereas if I had just got into my head and said, okay, this is where you are. This is how you're going to go. I could have pushed myself through and probably gotten results a lot faster.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I have clients, especially in the beginning when they start working with me, and they'll say, oh, Ann, I want to work out 3 times a week, an hour each time. And I said, well, how much are you working out now? Well, nothing really. It's like, okay, well, let's start a little slower so that we can at least work up to that. Because, I didn't want them to start something or think they could start something and then they couldn't do it, which kind of leads me to the next question is, you talk about deciding to do something is really seldom good enough. So if somebody says, I want to work out 3 times a week, they've made that decision, but then most of the time they don't follow through with that. Why do you say that deciding to do something is seldom good enough?
Well, here's my story. So I was very successful in the corporate realm. I had made it to vice president, an officer of a Fortune 500 company at the age of 39. I had managed departments of as many as 31 people before I was even 35. So I was very successful, but I realized I hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years. And so I forced myself to take a vacation, and I did a similar thing that I did when I talked about the insanity workout. I went out to play beach volleyball, which I used to be very good at. And I almost didn't make it through a whole game. And I was like, this is incredible. I've lost all my fitness. I'm not healthy. I'm overweight. And I was unhappy with myself. So I sat on the beach the next day and decided I was going to fix myself. Okay. Now I was also at an all-inclusive resort where alcohol was included. So I did continue to drink the whole rest of the week. I'll start on Monday. And I did in earnest try to start on Monday, but nothing stuck. And I did this and did this and did this. And I found myself 8 years later in worse shape than I was before. That decision didn't do the trick. Now, what did do the trick was that my daughter at the time, she was going through and she'd become a level 1 CrossFit coach, and she's doing all these things. And she calls me one day and she says, Daddy, I want you to come watch me do a CrossFit competition. And I said, yeah, I will. And I did watch, but it was a kick in the stomach because to me, I had never thought of myself as the spectator in my daughter's life. I was supposed to be a participant. I wasn't supposed to be sitting in a rocking chair watching her do stuff. I'm not supposed to be in a rocking chair watching my grandchildren do things. I'm supposed to be actively involved in their lives. And here I was knowing that I couldn't do that competition. I couldn't be there with her that way. I would be sitting in the stands watching. And so that was kind of a wake-up call. And so I sat down and I was like, okay, let's figure this out. Okay, Allan, you've done some really hard things. You don't get where I was without doing hard things. I had been in the military in an elite unit. I had been, going through college, made the grades, passed the CPA exam on the first try, stuff that most people can't do. I did. I'd even at one point in my life, I ran an ultra marathon, it was 50 miles. And so I had done hard things before, and I'm like, why does this seem so much harder than those things? It can't be. And that's when I realized, I haven't committed to this change. So when I talk about taking the CPA exam, every waking hour of my life that I wasn't working or going to school, I was studying. It was a barrage. I even played cassette tapes at night when I was asleep. And if I woke up to go to the bathroom, I'd turn the cassette tape over and continue listening. I had them going on in my car. I was working problems in the Glein every single day. I bought software so I could do it on my computer in the evenings. And so I had committed and I was obsessed. And I'm like, that's what's missing. I haven't really committed to do this thing. So the change for me, because again, like I said, I was traveling a lot. I was traveling about 90%. I was only home 1 week in a month, which is, that's about it. 1 week in a month. And I couldn't go to a trainer. There were a lot of things I couldn't do because I wouldn't necessarily always have access to the gym. So I just had to figure it out. So I said, okay, well, I can't get a trainer. I can't find any resources for people over 40. Those all would have been excuses when this was just a decision. But since now this was a commitment, it was a totally different way of looking at it. I said, okay, well, I got to solve this problem. And so the problem, what my answer was, I guess I'll just become a personal trainer myself. So I went and got the information, read through the courses, took the coursework, took the tests, NASM, certified personal trainer. I then said, okay, well, I need some help on corrective exercise. So I did the corrective exercise specialty. I then went for new fitness nutrition and I went to the Functional Aging Institute and got their cert. And it was that information that I was then able to train myself to get it done. There were a lot of other things that I needed to do, like not eat dinner at the hotel bar, because that always came along with a few beers. So it's like, okay, not doing that. I've got to find other places to eat that will serve me better food. So I'm doing some research. I would stay in hotels that had a gym or had access to a local gym. And so that was a game changer. I would get hotels further away from the office, so I had to take more steps to get to the office than I would otherwise. And so it was just these little changes, but they wouldn't happen if I wasn't committed. So if you're finding that you're struggling with something, even when you've decided to change, you haven't made it personal enough. And so for me, it was my daughter. And one of the crazy things I did, because I'm an Atlas, and so I got to that point, I'm like, I need something big and scary in front of me. So I challenged my daughter for us to go do a Tough Mudder. So I signed us up for this Tough Mudder. I gave myself 8 months to get ready for it. And when I signed up, I really had no business doing that because a Tough Mudder is a 12-mile, 13-mile mud run. Now, this is not on the street. This is not on a trail. This is harsh, hard to get through stuff. And they throw in obstacles, like 25 obstacles just to make it fun. So my goal was to get myself in good enough shape that I could participate with my daughter in that Tough Mudder. That means not slowing her down and her not having to leave me, but let her run her race. And I need to be there with her. And that's what I did. I finished the Tough Mudder with her. And that's such a special moment for me because I was holding her hands when we crossed the finish line. And that to me was the definition of participating and not being a spectator.
Yeah. So many times people will say, well, I'm going to try to do this, or I'm going to try to do that. And whenever you say the word try, most of the times when people say try, they never do. So I'm going to try to make it to your cookout on Sunday. They'll never show up. You're taking it even a step further, saying, hey, I've made a decision, but you actually have to commit to that decision.
Yes. And what helps with commitment is when it's emotional, it's raw. So if you don't have a big why, then it won't happen. And so for me, the big why was that I wanted to change my life. I wanted to change the way my daughter saw me, the way I was living my life with her. I wanted to be like that. I know at some point I'm probably going to have grandkids, and we didn't have Tough Mudders when I was little. I did a Tough Mudder. I don't know what my grandkids are going to be doing 20 years from now, but I'm going to want to participate at some level. And so, I might be that crazy 80-year-old out there trying to do a Tough Mudder, but that's what it is. And then I've got some family stories and things that really drive me when I start looking in the future of why. Why would I do this? Well, one, I want to remain independent. I want to remain strong and capable. I don't want other people to have to take care of me. And I want to be able to, again, be in other people's lives. My grandfather, when he was 80, he stopped playing golf because he couldn't play. Now, he loved golf. He loved golf. He loved golf more than people. Okay. And so for him to lose golf was a very depressing time for him. but he lived 15 more years. So that means 15 years of his life, he didn't do the thing he loved the most. Not even the driving range. Couldn't do that. So he lost that. Now, when he was 90, he was living in this assisted care place. So he had his own apartment, but he could call them anytime and they would come in and help him. But somewhere around the age of 90, he got to a point where he couldn't make it from his chair to the bathroom. So if he realized he needed to go, he wasn't going to make it. And he had to call them to clean him up because he couldn't do that either. And so he was so embarrassed by that, he wouldn't let me see him. He wouldn't let anybody but my uncle see him. And so for the last 5 years of his life, I didn't get to see him. And so I only tell that story because that's your aging curve. That's the path we're all on if we don't do anything else. And so one of my big whys is I want to be able to wipe my own butt when I'm 105. And a lot of people giggle, but there's a lot to that. One is the longevity. I want to have relationships with my grandkids and potentially my great grandkids. I want to be able to spend time with them. I want to be able to participate with them. And yeah, I want to be able to wipe my own butt, because that just the whole idea of someone else having to do that or having to clean me up, just that doesn't appeal to me. So I'm looking at my life. I'm looking at the relationships of my family and everything else. I need to be independent. I need to be strong. If my wife needs something when I'm older, I want to be the person that can do it. If she falls and hurts herself, I want to be able to pick her up, get her in a car, drive her to the hospital. So if you think about your life from that terms and you're looking at it long-term, short-term, all the way in between, then you start to realize there's things I love about my life now that could go away if I don't do something to keep them.
Absolutely so true. And by the way, did you know that there's a gene out there that can tell you if you have a higher probability to live to be over 100?
Well, there is, but the problem with genes is that any gene that does something, it really is going to depend on whether it's turned on or turned off. So yes, there's a genetic component to living a longer life, but you can destroy that. So, you could have the gene to live to 100, but if you're a smoker, that's probably not going to happen. You're probably going to die of cancer before you make it to 100. So you have to do the right things to take care of yourself to make sure that that gene is functioning the way it's supposed to. So lifestyle does mean more to your longevity and particularly how well you live than does necessarily your genes. But there are better genes and worse genes as far as that will do different things. But it's really about epigenetics and whether you've turned those genes on or turned them off.
Yeah, absolutely. I just didn't know there was a gene, though, that actually told you if you had a higher probability to live 100. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to help those genes.
But if you got that, if you have that gene, that's the thing to think about. A lot of people think, like when we were kids, it's like, okay, ride and die. We're not gonna make it past 30. So let's party while we got it. And then we found ourselves on the other side of that 30. We're in our 40s. Like, holy crap, what did I do to my body? And that's where a lot of people find themselves, is that they lived that way and then they didn't do anything. But if you have the genes to live to 100, what body are you carrying forward? What's your health going to be like? So I would rather live until the day I die and have a really healthful, vibrant existence than being sick the last 2 decades of my life.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. At least I would assume that they would.
And that's why you need to commit. If that's the sole reason, I don't want to spend 2 years of my life sick and miserable. That's pretty compelling why, in my opinion.
Yep. You need 100% commitment too, not just 99%. Yeah. So you want to be 100% committed to the goal, the outcome.
Which I would say, if you're a successful entrepreneur or trying to be a success, you're committed to that thing. You can't halfway commit to starting a business. You won't be successful if you're not committed. If you decide to start a business and you're not committed, you're out.
Yep,
it's a commitment.
Absolutely.
And so this is no different. You just have to realize that, well, why am I good at being an entrepreneur? It's hard. Yes, it is very hard. The failure rate is so high. Well, so is health and fitness. It's not any harder, but you do have to commit before you're going to see results.
I am sick and tired of people telling us that, we have to count calories to lose weight. It's, calories in, calories burned. So why do you think calorie counting is the worst way to help you lose weight?
Well, it's when you actually work it out, you realize it's actually a very dumb way. And the people who know that, they'll say, well, this is physics, the law of thermodynamics of energy in, energy out. True, to a point. But here's the fundamental problem with trying to count calories to make that energy difference happen. Number one, most of the food we eat is not measured. Even when you go to a restaurant, they're not measuring it as meticulously as you would think. And so as a result, they're not, they don't know the numbers. And so that's a guess. Or this is what it was in the practice kitchen at headquarters, but they're scooping more in or less. And so it's an estimate. All of it's an estimate. And, most people don't even know what a serving is. And if you ask how much they ate, they almost always underestimate how many calories they've eaten. I don't know how many times I've had a client and they're on MyFitnessPal and they're like, I'm only eating 500 calories a day. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Your body would shut down if you only ate 500 calories a day. You'd be starving all the time. And the point is they're not eating one serving of stuff. They're eating the whole damn box, The other thing with this is then you flip it to the other side. So let's just say even if you were just off a couple hundred calories, which you're probably off by even more than that, but it's just a couple hundred calories there. And then we go to the other side, and I'll tell you the story. At one point, I was trying to lose weight, and I started going to the gym consistently. I got my traction, and there was this one elliptical that I would go do. So I'd go an hour on the elliptical, okay? And I'd go in to do the elliptical, and I'd work my butt off for an hour, and it would burn 600 calories. Now, I was on that elliptical almost every day. So I named it. Her name was Bertha. And I had a date with Bertha every morning at 5 o'clock. And I'd be in there on Bertha for an hour, and I'd burn 600 calories. And that went on and on. One day, I show up at the gym, and Bertha's cheating on me. There's someone else using my elliptical. And so what I did was I said, okay, I'll use this other one over here. It's a different brand. I don't know if I'm going to like it as much, but I went over and did it. I worked really hard for that hour. And this elliptical told me that I burned 700 calories. So now I had a new favorite elliptical. The base point was I was doing the same amount of effort for the same amount of time. What logic says that I'm burning 100 more calories on one machine versus another that are essentially equivalent? And the short answer is I wasn't necessarily. And in fact, I probably wasn't even burning 600 calories in that hour. So if the burn that we're calculating is wrong and the eat is wrong, we're comparing a wrong estimate with a wrong estimate, and then we're upset that we're not losing the weight the way we're supposed to. I know I'm in a calorie deficit. Well, your body's saying something else. There's a reason why your body's not burning as many calories as you think, or you're eating as much as you think. So it's comparing an estimate against an estimate. If it helps you do trending, then it can be a tool. It can be valuable. But if you're just saying flat out, I'm going to put myself in a calorie deficit, and you believe in your heart of hearts that because you calculated on these estimates and formulas that you are in a calorie deficit, your body's saying something different. So it's a tool, but it's not a very good tool. If you're losing weight, you're in a calorie deficit. If you're gaining weight, you're in a calorie excess. And that's the end of it. So for me, a better choice is to pay attention to the quality of your food, the volume of your food, and how you feel. And if you eat to satiety and no more, and your activity level is generally pretty good, you're going to lose weight.
Yeah, makes total sense. I mean, I was just looking the other day at my Peloton. And so I did my cycling time, and it said I burned this many calories. And I went to my Oura Ring data, and it said I burned this many calories, which is totally different.
Well, which one do you like? Which one do you like?
I like the Oura Ring better.
Yeah, okay. It gave you a higher number.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And that's the whole point. Well, get your heart rate up, and you'll be burning more calories. I'm like, well, then I would just sit on the couch and watch horror films. If that's all it takes, no, there's activity levels, and your body's going to burn what it can burn, what it needs to burn. And then there's a lot of other complexity in there because see, the human body is not like a sealed system, and our body will downregulate the metabolism and upregulate the metabolism based on what's going on, based on the kind of food you ate, based on your activity level, based on how well you slept, based on your stress level. all those hormones are circulating in your system saying, no, hold on to this fat. And if you're high cortisol and you're stressed out, which most of us are, then your body's going to struggle to use that energy efficiently and do what it's supposed to do. So it's not going to let go of the fat. It's going to downregulate your spleen, because I don't need that immune system right now. And we're in fight or flight mode. I need to store fat in the stomach so we have it in case there's an emergency. And so your body is not going to be a flat out calculation that someone in a lab somewhere decided this is how much calories is in this food and this is how many calories you're burning on this Peloton.
Exactly. Any other great parting words of wisdom? I mean, we could talk all day about these things. At least I could, that's for sure. Any other thoughts about how to help us be healthier, fitter, so we can be even better entrepreneurs, more successful, and be at the top of our game, both physically and professionally?
Well, I'll put it this way. Okay. If you use any equipment in your business, then you know you need to maintain that equipment if you want it to be there for the standard life of that type of equipment. So we do maintenance. We take care of our stuff that drives our business. We should do the same to our body. And so I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people on my podcast. And it's interesting because some of them are vegan and some of them are carnivore and some of them are paleo and some of them are this. They all say the same thing, even though they're approaching it from a different paradigm. And the reality of it is this: the best way to maintain your body is to eat the food it recognizes, which is whole food, meaning it came from a plant or an animal, and you can still recognize it as that. So Twinkies and cookies do not grow on trees. It's not like going out and picking something and eating it. And, food goes bad. It should not sit on a shelf for months and months and months unless you've done something to prevent that from happening. For most of what's in our grocery stores right now, if it's in a box, bag, jar, or can, it's not really food anymore. Even if it was sourced from something that was food, it's been broken down and destroyed, and it's not good for your body. So feed your body well. This is like the quality of the fuel that you put in your work car, your work truck. This is the quality of the fuel that your body needs to rebuild, to repair. And so if you're taking care of your nutrition by eating whole food, and then you're moving your body appropriately, then you're doing the maintenance that your body needs to help you be successful at everything you do in your life. So taking care of yourself by eating well and moving well and managing your stress and sleeping well, and the words you say to yourself, because that damages us as well. But if you can address those key things, then your body's going to serve you, because that's one of the most wonderful miracles of all time. The human body is a machine that can get better. It can repair itself. It can improve itself if we do the right things. And I don't know another machine that can do that. So it's kind of a miracle.
Yeah, pretty much so. And you just burst my bubble. Twinkies don't grow on trees? Oh, man, really?
Really? I'm sorry. Now, they'll last for 20 years, but name a vegetable that you could just set out on the counter for 20 years and it's still going to be good.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I do appreciate your sharing your very valuable time with us today.
Thank you.
Well, after investing your very valuable time with Allan and me, I hope that you gain some insights and ideas that will propel you to even greater heights in every facet of your life. Share the wisdom by passing on my Accountability Coach podcast to ignite others, which can be found on most podcast platforms and in most English-speaking countries. And subscribe to the Accountability Minute for daily guidance on proven business success principles. I salute you for your hunger for more, your drive for wanting to be even better, and your unyielding commitment to becoming the architect of your destiny. Want more proven business success resources and tips? Well, of course you do. Subscribe to my blog by going to accountabilitycoach.com/blog. And always remember to aim for what you want each and every day. Until next time, make it a great day, today and every day. I appreciate you listening.